Is a better world possible? The challenges sometimes seem overwhelming. Billions of people have no access to education, health care, clean drinking water, or even basic human rights. Their poverty is compounded by corruption, conflict over resources, economic stagnation, and violence.
Some countries, whole generations of young people are being lost.
So the cycle goes on and on. So one has to break that cycle.
Where are the solutions? And who are the change makers who can create them? In the past few decades, a powerful force has emerged. New leaders finding new ways to tackle the world's biggest problems. Problems that governments and businesses alone have not been able to overcome.
This is a new language, a new way of looking at the world.
Very different structure, different framework, different reference points.
This global revolution is led by social entrepreneurs, innovative people who respond to local problems, engage their communities in solving them, and accelerate change.
What has happened during the last 5 years is breathtaking.
People have the power of transformation.
This series is an opportunity to learn from the most extraordinary social entrepreneurs, people whose visionary ideas and persistence have enabled millions to transform their own lives. These founding members of Ashoka's Global Academy for Social Entrepreneurship have lessons to offer us all about the power of our own potential. They all started small, from humble beginnings. You are invited to share their journeys, learn their insights, and about the tools they use to produce change.
We have a window of opportunity of a couple of years.
It's a chance that we have to think ahead.
The companies that get this are going to have a huge competitive advantage.
Whether you're in business, the media, government, universities, or the social sector, this series will expose you to a new way of thinking and working that will stretch your own beliefs about what's possible and how you can achieve it. Mohammed Yunus is the founder of Grameen Bank. Grameen loans money for self-employment to over 5 million poor women in Bangladesh.
You cannot get a dollar without a dollar in your hand. In the poor people, nobody gives the first dollar to catch the next dollar.
Dr. Yunus designed Grameen to serve people who have no collateral. 5 borrowers form a group and review each other's loans. The repayment rate is greater than 98%. More than half of Grameen's members have moved their families out of poverty.
We have demonstrated beyond anybody's doubt that it works and is sustainable and it can work in all kinds of cultural and economic situations.
Grameen Bank has become a model for hundreds of microfinance programs around the world, serving tens of millions of the world's poorest citizens. In this program, Dr. Yunus shares the experience and insights gained in his struggle to build the world's leading poor people's bank.
I was born in the middle of the Second World War. My father was a school dropout. He went up to about 8th grade in school. So he was a small jeweler. And we lived behind the shop that he was running. It's a little one-room place. Low-income neighborhood. My mother didn't go to school as much as my father did. She went up to 4th grade. But she always enjoyed reading books and reciting poems. So my actual education was with her. But gradually I took a lot of interest in whatever I was studying in the school. When the final exam for the primary school came, that was a public examination. And I was surprised when the result came out that I stood first in the whole municipality. Most of the thing that early years that I think had the most impression on me was the independence movement. And then came the real Independence Day in 1947, when the India and Pakistan were created and two different countries emerged. It's a very exciting experience for all of us. In 7th grade, I joined the Boy Scouts, and then I was chosen to join the Pakistan Boy Scouts Jamboree in Karachi in 1952. So that was a very exciting experience for all the kids, as there were about 200 plus kids from East Pakistan going to West Pakistan by train from here. At 10th grade, you matriculate. That's the end of your high school period. So I appeared in the matriculation exam in 1955. I was 15 at that time. And again, I got an opportunity to join another jamboree, the global jamboree, to be held in Niagara-on-the-Lake in Canada. So these kids, for us, coming from this tiny lane in one little room house to go to Canada was a very exciting experience. And in New York, we were received by the mayor of New York, with all these little kids from Pakistan. We were 27 in all. So this is a big exposure. And then we moved the same way, came to New York, took the ship back again to Plymouth in England. So we bought 3 microbuses, Volkswagen microbuses. And all the kids who were a little bit more senior than myself, they took the responsibility of driving these vehicles. And we drove through Europe, all the way to Pakistan. In the meantime, I got the news. I was on the top of the list of all the candidates who matriculated in the East Pakistan at that time, and then went to college. But I missed out several months of college because I was away. But the college was so intensive for me because it was only a year and a half that I spent in the college. Our college is just the 11th and 12th class. So that period became very important period for me. All the friendships I made, all the activities I joined, the cultural activities, literary activities. I was the editor of the newspaper. I was editor of the magazine. I would say one of the best period of my life. Then came to Dhaka to start my university time. I spent 4 years in Dhaka, finishing my honors in economics and then master's degree in economics in 1961. But I would say my university days were pretty dull because I decided not to participate in politics. I should study rather than getting involved in politics. But I was very happy that I finished university. I was hoping that this period will be over and I'll be doing something. Always I thought I'll be a teacher. I did a little bit of research work as a research fellow in the university. Then I got the job of becoming a teacher, and I took that job and went to Chittagong. My posting was in Chittagong College, where I passed a few years back. So some of my friends are still there as students while I came there as a teacher. While I was teaching there, at the same time I was thinking about starting some business. And myself and my older brother were thinking what kind of industrial enterprise we can set up. One of the things attracted us is packaging. And that idea came when I was visiting West Pakistan. I saw a packaging plant there, and it's a beautiful Swedish-Pakistani joint venture packaging plant. We thought we can have a small packaging plant in Chittagong. I had no idea how to set up a plant. But just as we went around, step by step, we did that, and that became the first packaging plant in East Pakistan. And then in the meantime, I saw an advertisement in the newspaper that Fulbright scholarships will be given by USA, and they're asking for applications. So I applied. I thought, why not? Let me get a PhD degree. And I got selected. And that took me to USA in 1965. The Fulbright Authority chose Vanderbilt University as the place where I should go. One thing I can in general say, which enjoyed it very much, quote unquote freedom, let's say. You are free, you can talk, you can exchange whatever way you feel, you are not afraid of anybody. So that part I liked. At the same time, the paradox of all this is also something made me very sad. In Vanderbilt, that was the first year of integration, racial integration, because it was a segregated university until 1964. So here, a nation which is supposed to be the leader in many, many things, but not allowing a black person to enter the same restaurant or enter the same school, I couldn't believe that. And then the Vietnam War. This is the peak of the Vietnam movement, the anti-Vietnam War movement, and the killing of Martin Luther King, killing of Bobby Kennedy, and all that, seeing right on your television screen. But even within that period, the most exciting thing that happened was a particular professor that I was very lucky to be with, Professor George S.Q. Rogan. He was a very unusual kind of person. First of all, not only he is a great scholar, he's a mathematician, he's a philosopher, economist. He was a great teacher. As you listen to him, you almost feel like you are in a concert. You are enjoying a performance of a great artist. But he gave me one thing, to look at the reality, because the reality is the supreme. Theory is only imitating the reality. Sometimes we got the wrong kind of messages, that as if theory is the thing and we have to build the reality to fit into the theory. That idea completely didn't go with him at all. So if something didn't match with the theory, debunk the theory, throw the theory, build it new so that it explains what's happening here. That part impressed me. Instead of looking at the theory, I was looking at the reality. During the stay in the USA, the liberation war broke out in Bangladesh. Suddenly, Pakistani army started attacking civilians in East Pakistan, and East Pakistan rebelled and declared itself independent. And immediately after listening to the news on the radio, several people, Bangladeshis who lived we were 6 of us in Nashville. We gathered together and declared ourselves as citizens of new country, Bangladesh. Within minutes we did that. I joined the movement and I became the secretary of the group and went to Washington to participate in the demonstration to stop the military aid to Pakistan, which aid was being used against the civilians of East Pakistan. So this became a full-time work for me. I was running around all over the United States, organizing teachings. At that time, this word was a very popular word in the early 70s and late 60s. Teachings. At the end of 1971, Bangladesh became independent country, finally, on 16th of December. The next question that came to my mind, what do I do? I decided that immediately I should go back. It was very difficult country at that time because all the roads are gone, bridges are gone, so you practically start from new. Many villages were burned down by the Pakistani army. Many professors were killed by the Pakistani army. So I was looking for a teaching job and I got the job in Chittagong University. I went there and started with a full vigor to build up the department. It's a new university, new department, and immediately I thought students should become familiar with the reality of their life, because our students are usually textbook-oriented students. This is how educational environment of Bangladesh is. So I thought, no, we should make a departure. We should let them understand what the reality around them and how reality and the theory has to work together. So since the university is located right among the villages, I asked them to get them involved in doing some survey and understanding how people live there, what kind of people live there, what are their problems, and so on. So it was a very exciting thing for me because it's a discovery for me too. I never did that myself as a student. And then came 1974. And in 1974, we had a terrible famine in Bangladesh. And you can see the famine everywhere. You come on the streets, people are dying of hunger. And in the beginning, you see one, you see two, and so maybe this is an exception, maybe something wrong. But gradually, number keeps increasing. But nobody says it publicly, that there is a famine in the country. So I went to the vice chancellor, the head of the president of the university in University of teach. He was a very respected person. He's a writer. As a writer, he was a very known person in the whole of Bangladesh. I asked him to sign a statement saying that the situation in the country is bad, people are dying of hunger, and nobody is paying any attention to it. And all of us in the university, all the teachers in the university, we went around, signed all the statement and put it in the newspaper. For the first time, newspaper announced in a big way there is a famine in the country and people are dying and we need to get actions moving. And I was feeling terrible. Besides doing the statements and so on, what else can one do? It's useless to go on teaching economics the way it is, that all those beautiful theories, elegant theories, look beautiful inside, but it has nothing to do with the reality outside. But as a human being, as an individual person, I can go out and touch another human being as they live and see if I can make myself useful to another human being. So I went around seeing such opportunities where there exist to make myself useful to another person, even for a day. And I was very lucky. I saw lots of such things happening and I could make myself relevant, make myself useful. And one thing right away came, which is the production of food. Country was not growing enough food to feed the people. And that led me to irrigation and dry season cultivation in the neighborhood of university. Why land should remain empty, fallow, while the university is sitting right next to it. If the university symbolized the wisdom, all the accumulated knowledge of the whole world, that's what the university is supposed to be. Why shouldn't that wisdom spill over to the neighbor's field? So the cultivation, and that led to the irrigation, became very successful program. Lots of food being produced in a season where no food was produced before. So I was very happy. But at the same time I saw how people, poor people didn't benefit from it. So landowners, the cultivators, and they benefited from this extra rice, but not the poor. So this became one of the concerns that I couldn't address. And as I go around my daily round, I saw one woman, extremely poor, sitting in front of a little broken down hut, making bamboo stools, beautiful bamboo stools. So I said, let's go and talk to her. So we went there, and she was very shy, she ran away. And finally we got into talking, asking how much money she makes. So she told me that she makes only 2 cents a day. I couldn't believe why she makes 2 cents a day for making that. And I said, why can't you sell it to a higher price? He said, I can't sell it to anybody because I have to sell it to this person. I said, why? Because I borrowed money from him. Why did you borrow? Because I didn't have the bamboo, which goes into these bamboo stools. So in order to buy the bamboo, I need the money. So I had to borrow from the trader, and he lent me the money with the condition that I must sell my bamboo stools to him only, and he decides the price. I have no control over the price. Can you get more price if you sell it outside? Of course I can get more price if I sell outside, but I can't, because I am promise bound to sell it to him at the price that he gives me, and otherwise he will not give me the money, and I can't do anything. So I realized that by borrowing money, she has become a slave labor to that person. Next day I decided to go around and see if there are more people like her. When my list was complete, I had 42 names on that list, and the total money they borrowed was $27. And I was shocked. This I never realized that could happen anywhere. People are suffering not for millions of dollars or billions of dollars, for a few pennies. And there's nothing anybody has done to get rid of this situation. So my first feeling is, why don't I give this money to the people here to repay the money lenders so that they can become free, which is a very simple thing to do. $27, you free 42 people right away. So I did exactly that. Asked them to give me back whenever they have money to pay back. Then something happened. The excitement that created in those people hooked me on. They thought this was a kind of a miracle that happened because they couldn't think anybody could come up and do such thing. So they looked up to me as if I've done a great thing. I said, all I did is a few dollars worth of money, that's all. Then another thought came to my mind. The thought is a very simple one. If you can make so many people so happy with such a small amount of money, why shouldn't you do more of it? I toyed around several alternatives. Finally, I decided maybe I should link them with the local bank. Bank is the one who should be lending money. This is their business. This is their job. So with enthusiasm, I go to the branch manager or the bank manager who is located in the campus, propose to him that he lend money to the poor people in the village. He fell from the sky. He couldn't believe I even said that. He said, no, it can't be done. It can't be done. I said, why not? Because, he said, poor people are not creditworthy. What does creditworthy means? Creditworthy means he will not be able to pay back. I said, how do you know? Did you lend them at all? He said, no, I never lent them. So how do you know? I said, everybody knows that. Because they are poor, no matter how much money you give, they will eat and the money will be over. They can't pay you back. So I went to higher officials in the city, downtown. I talked to them. They said the same thing. So every time I go and see somebody, they tell me the same thing. And it went on for months. I couldn't find the door to open. Then I learned something from them and I used it. I said, why don't you accept me as a guarantor? I become your guarantor. I sign all your documents. Risk is on me, not on you. You give the money. I thought it's such a straightforward proposal, they will immediately go for it. They didn't. In all, there were more than 6 months. Finally, I was accepted as a guarantor. And it worked. I was very excited that it worked. But the bank manager doesn't change his mind. He said it may work in one village, but if you do it in 2 villages, it will never work. I said, okay, let me do it in 2 villages. So I did it in 2 villages, it worked. He said, well, 1 village and 2 villages are the same thing. Maybe you should do it in 5 villages. So I did it in 5 villages. It worked. But he doesn't change his mind. After I have done this several rounds, and I realized that if I do the whole world, he's not going to change his mind. Maybe I should forget about him. So I thought maybe I should have a separate bank doing exactly what I'm doing. And that idea started haunting me. That why don't I have a bank for the poor people? I was invited to a conference in Dhaka in 1978. And one banker challenged me in the conference, if you're so sure it can be done, why don't you do it over a whole district, not just few villages around the university campus? In the university campus, you have some advantage. Your professors, your teachers are making sure that everybody pays back. But I immediately said, of course I'll do it. If you promise that after I do it over a district successfully, you will take it up and do it nationwide. They agreed, but they chose the district Tangail. I didn't know anything about Tangail. I never visited Tangail in my life. And then Tangail, I found out after I arrived in Tangail in 1979, there's a whole armed guerrillas working within Tangail. This is the remnants coming from the radical movements from the liberation war, going into the villages and killing village leaders and bringing radical communism and so on. That's what they believed in. But gradually what I started seeing, they were fighting among themselves. And some of them wanted to find jobs with us. So we recruited many of these, and only condition we put, you are welcome to come and work with us, but you must leave the guns. You cannot bring your rifles and ammunitions with you. So young people left that and started joining up. So Tangail becoming more and more now a reasonable place to work. And it is working beautifully. And we are very happy. But the bankers were not changing their minds. So they after 2 years, they raised this question. But Tangail is a small district. Maybe your presence made all the difference. Then I said, if my presence made all the difference, then why don't we take remote districts far away from Tangail? Reluctantly they agreed, and it worked too. But I see no way banks are going to support that. This is the time then I raised the question, maybe I should become a separate bank. So we went for institutionalization. That for me was very important thing. If we didn't become an institution, remain spread out with different projects with different banks, probably it will soon forgotten, removed, finished. Anyway, it took me another 2 years. Finally, lucky of me, some strange coincidences, we got it done. Government approved that. And I was insisting that not only I need the permission, I need a separate law. Because my understanding of the situation was, if we are created under the existing banking law, sooner or later, whatever I am doing will gradually become the same old bank. Because the law is a mold which will mold it in the same image of the existing bank. But lucky of me, government accepted that. I drafted the law in collaboration with the lawyers in the country and gave it a shape, and government adopted it as a law. And then we became a bank in 1983, in October. So this is how Grameen Bank was born. While we were in Tangail early on in 1980, one of the things we did, sit down with the borrowers, discuss for hours what is the problem, how we can solve the problem, or they can solve their own problems and so on. Because we are people not familiar with their life. So we spend a lot of time sitting down hours after hours, talking to them, visiting their homes, and then we got some money to hold workshops from UNICEF. So we used that money to bring these women to sit for 5 days together, exchange information with each other. And then we opened the subject, what they would like to do now that they are having money, and what are their priorities, what they would like to happen. And then gradually we got into a lot of ideas. Then we wrote it down and said, okay, this is what you said, carry this, because they cannot read and write. We wrote it down and passed it on to them. And they became known as decisions. And each year more decisions were put in until 1984, when we had 16 decisions. The 16 decisions, the decisions are like that we shall grow vegetables all year round and eat plenty of it and sell the surplus. The emphasis was always on eating, because we were going through at that time night blindness among the children. It was a common disease all over Bangladesh. Children will lose eyesight. And we found out, we were told by the doctors that this is because of vitamin A deficiency. And one way to have vitamin A is to eat vegetables. The kids are not eating vegetables. So this became a big program in Grameen Bank. And then we shall send our children to school and make sure they stay in school. We shall have pit latrines to begin with and use it. And then gradually we'll have a sanitary latrine in the house. We should not live in dilapidated houses. We should repair the houses, and as soon as possible we'll have a new decent house built. So it goes on and on 16 decisions. And they became instant success. Everybody wanted to have copies of 16 decisions. At that time we had no idea that it will become so popular with the borrowers. And now 16 decision became integral part of Grameen Bank system. Most of the poor people's houses, particularly in Tangail, when we began, were made of jute sticks. Jute stick is a very brittle, fragile stick, cheapest material you can get. Imagine the monsoon rain, it's all mud inside. Imagine the winter, the cold. So one of the things right away came, why don't we give housing loan? And that came to the 16 decisions. And we didn't even think that we can do it ourselves. Then luckily we saw in the newspaper an ad, Central Bank announcing that they will refinance any bank who wants to lend money to the rural areas for housing. They didn't have us in mind. They were thinking about well-to-do families in the rural areas who want to build their houses. And commercial banks can give loan. And we applied for a very small amount of money, something like $50 or something, for a housing loan. And they rejected us. Oh, this is not a house with $50. Whatever you build, it cannot be called a house. So it doesn't satisfy the definition of a house. So I said, why are you worried about the definition? We want to have something for the poor people to live under. We turned around immediately. We applied again, calling it a shelter loan. So no, why should you give a shelter loan? You should be giving what you do, giving income generating loan. Shelter loan is a consumption loan. Then we quickly changed the application, gave it another. Said we want to give a loan for factory loan. And why is the factory? The factory because here our borrowers are women, they work at home, so their home is their factory. They immediately rejected. They thought we are just pulling their legs. And all three applications are rejected. We don't have the money to give. So I decided to go to see the governor of the central bank. I said, look, we need only small amount of money. That's all. Even your one big conference spends much more money than what we are asking for. And then you have lots of research money. Why don't you take it as a research? Maybe it's working, maybe it doesn't work. Something clicked in his mind. He said, okay, I'll give you some money. So we borrowed from the central bank with the blessing from the governor of the central bank and started the housing loan program. And it worked. Immediately it became the hottest item because it's such an important thing. We required the women or the borrowers when they ask for a housing loan that they must show that the land is owned by them. But women, most of our borrowers are women, they don't have that title of the land because they live in their husband's house. So we said, well, one way, if you are looking for a housing loan, if you want to build a house, convince your husband to hand over the title to you. In the beginning, everybody resisted, the husbands didn't want to do that. But the desperation was so much. Some of the husbands said, okay, why not? And that cured one of the problems that we have in Bangladesh, particularly, divorce. Husband divorce their wives very quickly, and it's very easy to divorce because all that a husband is required to do is to say, I divorce you 3 times, and it's done. So wife has to pack up and go home, go to her parents' home, because she doesn't belong to this home anymore. So now after this house is built, husband doesn't say that as quickly, because if he divorces his wife, he's the one who has to leave this house because the house belongs to the wife. Today we have over 600,000 houses built with Grameen Bank money, with Grameen Bank loan. And all these houses are owned by the woman who built this house. Well, for any work, you need a team. If you play a game, you need a team. If you go in business, you need a team. So you have to build a team. That's very important. And I talked to my colleagues, my staff in Grameen Bank, and explained, Grameen Bank is you. What you do is called Grameen Bank. It's not what I do is called Grameen Bank. I shuffle papers in the head office, write letters and so on. But you do the work. Whatever you interact with the borrowers, that's Grameen Bank. So if you are doing the right thing, Grameen Bank is right. If you are doing the wrong thing, Grameen Bank is the wrong thing. As simple as that. We selected them out of almost like a random selection rather than a very involved selection. Because we feel that the people, the staff can be created inside. We rather prefer people having no experience. Particularly, we insist that you shouldn't have any experience with the conventional banks. So we do our own molding, and the molding comes through the work itself. They like the job because they see how it works for the poor people. They see how life changes because of their work. and it sounds relevant to their own life. Like, for example, one of the thing, again, 16 decisions, that we shall send our children to school, make sure they stay in school. Through them, they see their own brothers and sisters back home. And when these kids get scholarships, they enjoy as if their brothers and sisters getting scholarship or student loan. This is something is part of their dream too. Grameen Bank runs with a system of groups, 5 people together, elect their chairperson, elect their secretary. So this is the first time they get the exposure, how to occupy a kind of a public office. When election time came, national election, political election in the country, we encouraged them to go and vote, because votes are important. Your views should be heard. But in the beginning they were very reluctant. They said, what is the use? They are all thugs, they are all crooks. Why should we go and waste our time voting for them? So we explained to them that if we don't vote, then the worst of the crooks will get elected. So we have a choice. We can at least find the least of the crooks or least of the thugs. And that immediately they understood that yes, that we can do. And they got very energized. From then on, they're participating in the election process. But we didn't realize that will spill over to something else. Once they got into the voting, they realized how much political power they have, because all the candidates started campaigning for themselves, waiting in their center meetings to give a chance to speak for 5 minutes, even the top leaders, because they are big voting blocks. When the local election time started coming, they became candidates themselves. And their explanation is, why should we go and look for the least of the crooks? We are good people. So why don't we become candidates? So in the 97 election, there's a tremendous amount of support for the Grameen members getting elected by the Grameen members. We started out few hundred elected positions 5 years back, and then 2,000. And last year, there was a local level elections. And the total number of elected officials in the local body is 12,000. Out of that, 3,000 plus is from Grameen borrowers. Along the way, what we did in 1995, we came up with another idea. While we do the Grameen Bank, I became a strong advocate of information technology coming to the poor people. I said, if we can bring microcredit, which is a Grameen program, and information technology to the poor people, then it will be faster to get out of poverty. And we got an opportunity. Government was inviting applications to give license for mobile telephone company. We applied, and after long procedural battle, finally we got a license, and we created Grameen Phone. The idea is to bring mobile phone in the rural areas of Bangladesh, and then give a mobile phone in the hands of the poor women with the financing from Grameen Bank, so that she can start selling the service of the telephone and become the telephone lady of the village. And anybody who needs to call anywhere, they can come to her and pay her and use her phone, and she makes the money, and village has the telecommunication system going. Today, more than 100,000 telephone ladies all over Bangladesh. You can almost go anywhere in Bangladesh, call anywhere in the world, because there's a telephone lady who has a telephone you can use, and she makes money and you get connected. Bits and pieces came, different kind of amendments in our system, tiny bits and pieces altogether. So at one point we realized that we have lots of those bits and pieces, something worked, something didn't work. We thought maybe we should pull them all together. And things we wanted to do before, never did it, because we are afraid this will rock the whole system. Let's go bold and put them all together, try it in one go, in a massive way. And that we put them together and called it Grameen 2. The same system, but more generalized. Grameen system, at the beginning, we were very worried if we make it complicated, people will not understand, they do not read and write and so on. So we made it very simple. So all our loans were for 1 year. And it's all paid in equal installment over a period of 1 year, 52 weeks. So that's how we work. Now we realize that people are mature, so we changed that. We said loan could be for any period. It could be shorter than a year, it could be longer than a year, it could be several years, it could be several months, and made the installments, for example, also variable. Instead of having same amount every week, we said it could be more, it could be less, and so on. But for individual persons, already there are many members who have spent 10 years or more with Grameen Bank, are capable of handling bigger size of money. So in Grameen 2, we have another stream working where you can borrow larger amounts. The largest loan will be over $10,000, one single loan. And we added few more savings product like pension fund. So we gave this attractive proposal, and that if you put some money along the way, each week a small amount over a period of 10 years, whatever money you have put in over a period of 10 years, you get almost double that money. This was a very attractive proposition for them to accumulate money. So this is in total what is known as Grameen 2. Grameen Bank today has come a long way. Member-wise, we have just crossed the 4 million mark. The reason it can happen so fast, unlike Grameen 1, because our insistence in Grameen 2, the money should come from the same locality. So don't look at us as a supplier of your money. Today almost all branches are profitable because they focus on their money and they don't have to borrow and pay interest on the borrowed money to head office. They take the local deposits, pay the interest on their deposits and lend it out to the borrowers and make money. So that way expansion became very simple. We don't want to bring the money to the Dhaka at the head office because we could only invest the money in Dhaka city. And we are always opposed to mobilizing savings in the rural areas, passing on to the metropolitan area, and metropolitan area making use of that money. I said this is drying up the rural areas. So we said we are not interested in the money coming to the city, but you find opportunities to make the investment right there. So that's why more branches are being opened. For the first time in Grameen Bank, the amount of deposit has exceeded the amount of loan outstanding. There's a debate going on for some time. The debate is microcredit is a wonderful idea, but it works only for the top layer of the poor people. It doesn't work for the middle level, it doesn't work for the bottom level. Bottom level and the middle level, they need charity, they need handout, they need other kind of intervention, not the credit, because they don't have the ability to use the money, loan money for their businesses and so on. They don't have the ideas and skills and so on and so forth. We have been saying that, look, we are always addressing the bottom people. That's how Grameen Bank was born. Our first loan is at $27 to 42 people. These are not rich people in that village who took those less than $1 a piece. So it started with that idea. So this year we started a beggars program. We call it struggling members program. We go to the beggars. We tell them that, look, as you go from house to house begging, usually begging in Bangladesh in the villages, you get some rice. As you go from house to house, would you carry some merchandise with you? Some cookies, some toys, some ribbons, some bangles, some candies. The children may be interested to buy, or a housewife may be interested to buy. So you have both options open. You don't have to stop begging and then pay us back. And this is interest free. And do it. Take your time. There's no time limit. You are not forced to follow the Grameen Bank rules. We told our staff that for beggar members, Grameen Bank's rules don't apply. Each one of them make their own rules. So you follow their rules, how they want to do with it. Only rule that we gave them, the money has to be paid back. In the beginning, we thought maybe we'll have 3,000, 4,000 beggars in the program during the year. But we started seeing a big number coming in. And we ended the year by exceeding 26,000 beggars in the program. The advice is very simple. Just look at the issue first. What is it that you are addressing? Unless you are clear about the issue itself, you cannot design anything that you may be a very warm-hearted person, you are very kind, you want to do good things. Just being able to think about good things doesn't make you one doing good things. Because you need to translate into an action that works. So you have to define your work very clearly and then design something that matches that thing. And learn by doing. The first cut that you will have in your program is not the ultimate. This is just to get you going. And then you notice which was working, just like you build a machine. First airplane that was built is not the airplane that Boeing builds today. There's a difference. But the principle has been set. That's the important thing. Our basic features, even today, are still the same thing that we did in Jobra. The basic feature never changed. We added pieces, we refined things, but basic 5-member group was done in Jobra. Weekly meeting was done in Jobra. Loan for income generation done in Jobra. And the savings done in Jobra. Center meetings done in Jobra. So these are the essentials of Grameen system wherever you go in the world. And this is first important thing. And continue to be stubborn about it. Because if you get swayed by who says what, whether it can be done, well, it works here, but it may not work in Bangladesh because this is another country, or it works in Bangladesh, it won't work anywhere. Don't get swayed by those things because people are always waiting there to say no to you. So stay stubborn if you believe in what you're doing. Don't think, well, maybe I'm wrong, everybody else is right. And listen to people. People who are saying about the things that you can use and to improve, not the negative, the wholesale dismissal. Wholesale dismissal doesn't come to your help. But if somebody says, this is good, but if you could do something like this, it would be wonderful. And see whether this is making sense to you. If it doesn't make sense, don't tinker with it, because you are the ultimate designer of the whole thing. So stay with it. And the other point that I'll say, try to get to the sustainability level as fast as you can. Because that's where we'll make it the whole sky open for you. Because if it is sustainable, meaning that you can turn it into a kind of a business proposition, business in a non-loss sense, that you're not losing money, it covers its own cost, that's a tremendous strength. As long as you remain dependent on somebody else for financing, you are limited. You are at the beck and call of that person or an organization, because they give you the money, so they will always give you instructions. And that may ruin your thing that you wanted to do. So if you are self-sustaining, if you can get the juice out of your own work to make it work, then you are the boss. You can design the way you want and then go anywhere you want.
Grameen Bank is best known for bringing the power of microfinance to over 4 million poor women in Bangladesh. But it has also created more than 24 other ventures.
Whether non-profit or for-profit, our involvement relates to benefiting to the poor people.
Muhammad Yunus, Grameen Bank's founder, describes why and how Grameen has launched enterprises in areas as diverse as textiles, cell phone technology, and healthcare. He shares the valuable lessons he has learned in finding new ways to give Grameen's members even greater access to opportunity and power.
We need a very different structure, different framework, different reference points. We would be judged by our own achievements.
Dr. Yunus sees a global need for a new kind of capitalism, one that puts people in need first. He demonstrates how economic viability can magnify the impact of social ventures. And he describes the support systems needed to allow this new model of capitalism to reach its vast potential.
Since capitalism is narrowly interpreted, socially conscious people don't want to get involved in business because that's uninteresting for them. That's not what we want. We don't want to make money. We want to do something else. So they are outside the business purview. I'm saying if you open it up, a lot of people will gradually come in, particularly young people who are looking for things to do in the world, contribute in the world, and solve problems in the world. They will dream of becoming a social business entrepreneurs, and the facilities has to be created so that they become social business entrepreneur. And I'm talking about even creating departments. There are business schools producing MBAs. There will be a social business program in the business school which will be creating social MBAs. And then you need another institution to make it happen, like you have the stock markets. And the existing stock market, people go there to make more money, as simple as that. You don't go there for charity. So if I want to do good to people in a business way, I have nowhere to go. So I said, why don't we create a completely separate stock exchange where all the companies who are doing good to people, the social business enterprises, will be listed. It could be women's empowerment, it could be street children, it could be drinking water, it could be arsenic problem in some place, it could be pollution problem in another place, it could be healthcare program in some place, it could be health insurance for poor people, whatever. There's 101 and 1001 ideas that you can bring and run those things in a business way, provided the investors who would like, I cannot run a company like that, but I would like to invest in one. I have the money and I can spend it. If we have to run a social business enterprise right now, we run into a lot of problems because we have not set up supportive institutions alongside. So we would be depending a lot more on the old institutions, and they will be at each stage questioning our norms, or they will not understand our performance statistics and so on. If we are not making profit, why should I come and support you? Why should I lend money to you? You are not making any profit. How are you going to pay us back? But doesn't mean that you have to be out of the market completely. It means that you are the first one to venture into new territory and you lead the way and others will follow you and create institutions. This is how the pioneers always did. Be the first one, stick the neck out and make it happen. Luckily, already if you look around the world, there are many, more than we can think, are social business entrepreneurs. So there will be initial problems, but if it sticks, if it grows, you can create your own world.
Muhammad Yunus created Grameen Bank, a bank tailored for poor people in response to crushing poverty in his newly created country of Bangladesh.
Poverty is not caused by the poor people. Poverty is caused by the system we built. Poverty is caused by the policies that we pursue.
Grameen Bank has made a significant contribution to reducing poverty in Bangladesh. Since Grameen's creation in the 1970s, life expectancy has risen more than 20 years. The fertility rate has been cut in half. It is estimated that each year, 200,000 Grameen members and their families escape poverty.
The question is, where do we end up? 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now? We did something wrong and the poverty is created. So let's do something right so that poverty disappears.
Dr. Yunus traces the growth of microfinance into a worldwide movement. He shares his vision for using it to meet the Millennium Development Goals and to create a poverty-free world. He describes what it will take from all of us to enable microfinance to reach its global potential.
To me, poor people are like a bonsai. Like the bonsai tree, little tree. You pick the seed of the tallest tree in the forest and then take the best seed out of that and plant it in a flower pot. You got a tiny little tree and call it a bonsai. Nothing wrong with the seed. We got the best seed possible. Nothing wrong with the tree because we picked the tallest tree in the forest. But actually it grows this far. Why? Because we put them into a flower pot, the base. Society is the base. And society is so stingy, it doesn't give them the poor people space to grow. So I said, change the base. If you change the base, anybody will be as tall as anybody else. My belief is poverty is not caused by the poor people. Poverty is caused by the system we built. Poverty is caused by the policies that we pursue. So if this is my conclusion, I have to prove that this is true. So I built Grameen Bank as an institution, a bank, but a different kind of bank. You say, there are banks, why did you create another one? Well, I said, this kind of bank doesn't exist. That bank created poverty. These banks get them out of poverty. We assume that some people will always remain poor. I'm always asked in Bangladesh, you talk about having a poverty-free world, are you crazy? Even the richest country in the world, United States, they have poor people there. I said, look, no matter how rich you get in the present system, you'll have poor people. So I'm trying to change that system. And that system, there will be no poor people because people are as capable as anybody else.
Bill Drayton is the founder of Ashoka, Innovators for the Public. Ashoka works at the forefront of the rapidly growing field of social entrepreneurship. It supports the work of entrepreneurs worldwide who solve social problems in far-reaching, pattern-changing ways.
Our job is not to give people fish. It's not to teach them how to fish. It's to build a new and better fishing industry.
From modest beginnings in the early 1980s, Ashoka has grown into a community of over 1,500 fellows, supported by staff members, partners, and volunteers in over 50 countries.
88% of the people we elect at the end of 5 years have had other institutions copy their ideas. 59% have achieved national policy impact, and on average, they're serving 174,000 people.
Bill Drayton has been a social entrepreneur all his life. He shares his story to provide insights into what it takes to create widespread social change.
The development of Ashoka is very typical of the development of any major entrepreneurial venture. The idea, of course, dates back at least to the time I was an undergraduate. There was the challenge that came very sharp once I'd been in India. You must close this north-south gap. You must speed up development, democracy in the world. So there are many things that were very clear, but something was missing, and that was that the historical moment wasn't ripe, and also in our personal lives it wasn't ripe. We needed to go through our apprenticeship. I had to spend time at McKinsey learning how the world works, learning the key skills of how you cause change. Then, as I was at EPA, we sensed that the historical moment was coming. You could hear the hinge creaking. And what we were seeing very personally was that our friends, my friends in India and elsewhere, were starting to be social entrepreneurs. And what was happening was that the post-independence generation in Asia was coming of professional age. They were now in their 30s. Their parents thought getting control of the government, take over those instruments, that was the focus. The next generation grew in an environment with these overpowering government institutions, and some of them felt they could do better. And so you could see the beginning of a very significant wave of social entrepreneurs who were having a very difficult time. No word to describe the field, no support institutions, a lot of doubt ranging from their family to the government. I said, oh, this looks like this is the time. Then we asked, all right, well, how do we intervene? Where can you intervene which will have the biggest possible impact with very modest resources, all we could imagine available to us at the time? And that is the moment when a person and an idea have finished their apprenticeship, and they know, the entrepreneur knows that they have an idea that is the next big generic step for their field. Then all you want to do is go full-time and run with this idea, seize the historical moment. But who are you? What is this idea? It doesn't fit any of the existing patterns because they were set up to serve the old idea. At that point, a little bit makes all the difference. Very little money, so you can look your family in the eye and say, I know it's crazy to leave my tenured job in a nice, safe institution. You've got to be able to look them in the eye and say, I'm going to do this. And we give you the financial ability to do that if you need it. But beyond that, you now are a part of a family of your peers, and your uncle can see that these people that are very respected in your society and internationally think your work is important, believe in you. The early years of Ashoka, as for almost all our fellows, raising money was a nightmare. No funding from any institutional foundation for our first 6 years. Basically, the Klingenstein, Lipkin, and Golden families, that was it. Then I was working part-time at McKinsey, commuting to New York. Ashoka was going, and it was a very crazy time. And that overload is what made the MacArthur sudden phone call in November of 1984, miraculous. The MacArthur Foundation had chosen me to be one of its fellows, which gave me 5 years' income. And also, very importantly, for people who could not understand what Ashoka was about, gave me a sort of vaguely reputable category to fit into. It was a very key, liberating moment. I was able to go on leave from McKinsey, which I'm still technically on leave.
Peter Eigen is the creator of Transparency International. Transparency International has focused worldwide attention on the issue of corruption and leads a global effort to combat it.
These big projects lend themselves to huge kickbacks, to payments of $10, $20, $30 million for individuals on their bank accounts, say in Liechtenstein and Switzerland.
In just a little over a decade, Transparency International has become a formidable force for change, with more than 90 national chapters. It has galvanized the public, private, and social sectors into adopting concrete steps to rid the world of the blight of corruption.
So that was the breakthrough. I believe that this should be an approach which typically social entrepreneurs should pursue.
Throughout a notable career with the World Bank, and now with Transparency International, Dr. Eigen has always been entrepreneurial in his approach to solving problems. In this program, he shares his experiences and strategies in creating global change.
our preparation of the launch conference of Transparency International, we had developed a number of insights which are still the guiding principles today. First of all, we knew that we could not investigate individual cases to expose them, as Amnesty International is doing in their area, because we wanted to bring people to join us who were even involved in corruption, because corruption is so complex and it is so technical in many ways that you needed the people who really know what they are talking about to join you and work together on joint programs. So that was probably the most important shift from what I had personally had in mind when I left Kenya. The second insight was that we would have to deal with corruption with the local knowledge and the local enthusiasm and the local courage and credibility which has to come from each society itself. So we knew very quickly that we wouldn't be able to operate like the Catholic Church, or like the World Bank, sort of preaching from the center what everybody else had to do. And therefore we began very early on to initiate the creation of what we call national chapters, which are non-governmental organizations organized in various countries under their own systems, under their own conditions. And the third important insight was that very often when you deal with corruption, people focus mainly on punishing. But in our opinion, criminal law is a relatively blunt weapon against corruption. We have a rather holistic approach. We see at all the different elements of an integrity system which have to be in place in order to protect society against corruption. This includes legal matters, laws, institutions, guidelines. It includes the role of the media, their independence, their competence to deal with corruption. It includes very technical matters like how you select, for instance, contractors, under international competitive bidding or so. How much transparency you enforce in your legislative body. It includes matters like how you deal with conflict of interest in a society, and so on. So it is like a mosaic of many different elements which together create the overall system of integrity. And these were things which we learned very early on in our brainstorming sessions leading up to the launch of our organization.
In the early 1970s, the newly independent country of Bangladesh was reeling under the effects of war, flood, and famine. Fazl Hassan Abid organized a relief effort that was quickly transformed into something very different.
We came to the conclusion that relief and rehabilitation is not going to be enough. It has to be a long-term commitment to development. People were poor and going to remain poor unless we bring about change.
Abid understood that one does not simply develop people. People must develop themselves. Through the Bangladesh Rural Advancement Committee, now simply known as BRAC, he has enabled millions of people to break away from poverty.
Poor people are poor because they are powerless. You must organize people for power. They must organize themselves in such a way that they can change their lives.
In this program, Abid shares his story and that of BRAC as it has grown from a small group of dedicated staff members to a giant non-government organization of over 4 million members, which continues to be a guiding light for all who take on the task of global development.
At that time, there was a Brazilian educator named Paulo Freire, whose book, The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, was published in 1973. And I think early in 73, I read that book. his thesis was that the poor people are poor because they are powerless. You must organize people for power. They must organize themselves in such a way. They must understand the dynamics of their communities in such a way that they can change their lives. So that book sort of provided a theoretical framework for us to try and develop people for power. So we set up a whole 100 lessons in which we sort of started building self-worth in people. And through that process you build self-confidence that they can change their condition and they don't have to live in poverty and degradation forever. We go into a village, a field worker, we call him a program organizer. He goes into a village and organizes maybe half a dozen people, maybe 15 or 16 people, and said that you form a group and then you bring in more people till you are about 30 to 40, and then a village group is in existence. And then once we have got this 40 people in a village organization, we call them, then we start other programs like saving starts even before the group is complete. But once the group is complete, then of course we'll provide credit. We'll also provide some training programs like legal education so that they understand their rights and obligations. In each village we have 1, 2 or 3 groups of 40 women. So about 10 groups to 1 PO. In an average area office I think we have got about 20 POs. The 20 POs will look after about 200 groups. 200 multiplied by 40, it could be as many as about 8,000. So area office will cover about 7,000 to 8,000 group members. So you replicate throughout the country and you have 4.5 million.